welcome to, the sometimes podcast, Phantom Zoned. We've been off for a bit, and so we welcome you back if it's been a while since you've listened to us, because I think we've been off for about a month now. But we are the podcast where we dredge the lakes of hell, in search of the worst that the cinematic world has to offer. And then myself and my co-host Scott Daly, we watch these films, put them on trial for their, crimes against humanity, if you will. And then we vote amongst ourselves. And if we decide that these films are guilty of being the worst pieces of trash possible out there, then we jettison them into the far, far reaches of space, a phantom zone, if you will. Like I said, we've been off for a month. I was sick at one point. Scott was sick at one point. We went out of town for a period of time and got busy, and we were able to come back together now. And we have this terrible, terrible, terrible movie to bring to you. But first of all, how are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing pretty good, Adrian. I missed talking to you, buddy. I mean, we saw each other in person,
yes.
So I talked to you there, but I missed talking to a microphone and then hearing your voice come out of the internet.
Specifically about movies that I have subjected you to.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't seen a bad movie in like 20-something days until now.
Well, I mean, I think we agree that we saw maybe 1 to 2 bad movies when we were out of town. But
that's just a whole Phantom Zone bad movies are a whole different level of bad movie.
Well, like Scott mentioned, we did talk to each other for a while because we were at Fantastic Fest a couple weeks back. Saw a whole bunch of movies. Do you know how many you ended up seeing personally?
34.
34. Wow.
Yeah.
How did I see? Oh, maybe it was one of the press screenings and then one of the screeners I saw in the morning, because I went on behalf of the site that I write for, Boom Howdy, and was lucky enough to get a press pass. So I was able to have access to online screeners as well as go to a couple press screenings. So on evenings when I was really tired, or in afternoons where I wanted to take like a longer break and grab dinner with my wife, then I ended up skipping a couple. But I was able to get 36 in.
Wow.
And that's
I was proud of my number.
Going to a couple different events instead of films. But,
yeah, I think for the non-press folk, I think 37 or 38 is the best you can do.
Yes.
But yeah, I went to some events and I missed some midnight movies.
It's very true. It's very true. What was I know it's the opposite of what everybody asks, but this is Phantom Zone. We talk about bad movies here. What would you say was the worst movie that you saw?
So the worst movie that I saw that I feel was trying to be a good movie was Apple Cart.
You think it was trying to be a good movie?
Well, no, I think it was trying to be a real movie.
I feel like that's stretching it too. Apple Cart in its current state, because I'll come out and it'll make this conversation very easy. I agree. Apple Cart was the worst thing that I saw as well. The interesting thing that you pointed out to me a couple days ago is that the director already came forward and said that based off the response out of Fantastic Fest that they're going to go back and recut and reshoot part of the movie. Yeah,
it did not get very well reviewed, not just by me, but by Fantastic Fest at large. So yeah, they are going to recut the movie, which is something that apparently has been done multiple times. They have been working on this movie on and off for like 2 years because they keep reshooting scenes or changing things or changing the ending right before it comes to Fantastic Fest. All these things that they're doing. And I don't know.
Yeah, you can't tell at all that it's been tinkered with.
No, you can't tell that the movie's kind of a mess and goes all over the place and is trying to do 2 completely separate things in the same movie.
And is like 3 different films, half of which isn't really explained.
Yeah.
If Apple Cart stays the way it is, it will belong at a future Phantom Zone episode.
Yeah, the reason I put that clarifier on there is because the worst movie I saw at the festival is Take It Out and Trade, the Ed Wood softcore porn. But that, yes. I don't feel like that counts because it's
see, and that's That's an interesting thing that I was going to get into, because of course we mentioned Fantastic Fest, so we do have to address the elephant in the room before we move on to anything else. And shortly before we made our way to Fantastic Fest was when a whole bunch of stuff started happening. Last year, of course, around this time in 2016, there was an accusation that went out on Twitter towards Devin Faraci by a lady who mentioned that he had sexually harassed her about a decade prior. He said he didn't remember the situation, but apologized for it. Ended up stepping down from his position as editor-in-chief at Birth Movies Death, and was, let go out of the limelight and everything. A couple weeks before Fantastic Fest, I think it was about a week and a half before it started, they put out basically a digital copy of the program so that people could read about each of the movies. And there's about a couple paragraphs that usually go into that, and at the bottom it's credited to a person. At that time, some people saw that a couple were written by Devin, and so people were like, wait, what's going on? We thought he wasn't a part of things. The news came out that Todd Brown, who was one of the head programmers of the festival, was dropping out because he didn't know this information. Tim League had a series of apologies and stepped forward saying, actually, he's just been doing copy editing for us for the last couple months because we wanted, to make sure that he could still, take care of his bills because he's making good progress. And then we upgraded him to this. And then they ended up letting Devin go at the same time. And there was a whole big fallout with everything that was going on. Answers weren't being questioned. People didn't feel that the press releases that were going out were being addressed the way they should have been. There were other issues and other things that were coming to light that hadn't been directly addressed. What was going to be happening stepping forward hadn't been addressed either. So there was this weird cloud when you're going in because there was still information coming out. And nobody really knew what was going on. With that, Tim said that he wasn't going to be there because he was going to be visiting a whole bunch of the Alamo Drafts houses to sit down with employees. And as a report went, I think I talked to her for a moment and just didn't realize who it was. But at Fantastic Fest, while he wasn't there, his wife, Carrie League, who was essential to the starting of the Alamo Draft House and Fantastic Fest and stepped away years ago when she became a mom, was actually there in a non-official capacity talking to men and women who were there at the festival, getting their point of view. And then all of a sudden the news came out about Harry Knowles and the reason why he wasn't there and the harassment charges there, the fallout from Ain't It Cool News. So there was a whole bunch going on while everybody's seeing movies. How did that affect your experience, Scott? And did you have any conversations with anyone who was there about it or any females concerning it?
Yeah, I did. It's bad. It's weird. You and I met via Birth Movies Death. The comment section there, we had so many friends, like everyone we hang out with at Fantastic Fest are friends that we met through that website. And it's something that we all love very much. And I think we still love. And it's very tough seeing it go through all these terrible, horrible things. And it's tough seeing people you've looked up to in both Devin at one point and Tim League now, behave in ways that really, really disappoint you. And it was like, I'm sure I'm not the only one that thought long and hard about, like, is this something that I want to associate myself with? Is something I still want to be a part of? And obviously, you and I both arrived with, yes, we need to go. This is a community that we're part of. And if the community is going to fix itself, is going to improve, that's something that I felt I needed to be part of.
Yeah. And I mean, there's many qualifiers that I'll throw out there. Is that we want to go to the festivals to see these people that we're not going to get a chance to see, basically for like a whole another year, not just people who are in Texas, but people who are coming from all around the country or all around the world to this festival. At the same time, there were a whole bunch of female writers who had already committed to going to it and said, I'm going to go because this isn't going to stop me. There were a whole bunch of people who were yelled at because they decided to go who were females, but they're like, no, this is my chance. I want to stand up. I still want to write about these stuff. If I don't write about this, whether it be the events itself or the movies that are there, that's going to harm me and my work. So even though somebody else did wrong, that shouldn't, look negatively upon me because I'm not that individual. At the same time, this year for everything, and it was kind of weird for the cloud that was over everything that was going on. There were so many great films that focused on awesome, great female performances. Either they were written by females, they starred females, or they were directed by females.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that weird perfect storm in a way. You have this bad thing that's happening on the outside, but then you have the movies that are reflecting the side that you hope continues to go forward.
Yeah. And this, I mean, I've been to this is my third year going to the festival. The festival's been going on for, I think, 12 years now. And I know
this was the 13th.
13th. Yeah. Okay.
Strangely enough.
I know that there's been complaints in the festival going on. It is largely men still. That this is I think that the common thing is this is the only place in the world where women don't have to wait for bathroom and men have to wait in giant lines just because there's so many more guys there than there are girls. But I know the festival has taken steps in the past. Like, whenever you get in genre festival, you get into some pretty rough exploitative type films, and they've moved away from having some of those really, really, really bad ones. They've taken more steps to be inclusive. And I think this year, there was a lot of conversations going on. I mean, I think this was kind of hovering over the head of everyone. And it wasn't something that people were just like ignoring. It was something that people were taking face on. And people I still love the speech given by, and I'm blanking on her name now, unfortunately, but
Kristen Bell.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That the speech at the very start of the festival was wonderful. The fantastic debate rant I thought was great as well. There.
And then were you at what's it called? Sorry, the Fantastic Feud?
No, that I missed.
Yeah, because that was good. Okay, so the four key parts basically. You had Kristen Bell, who's been basically the head of programming, next face next to Tim Lee when it comes to Fantastic Fest for years, and she gave a beautiful, incredibly impassioned speech the first night. And you could tell that that she was shaken and that she was very emotional, but she had so many great things to say and just a great vision for what she wanted the festival and the company and the community to be. And there's lots of times that takes a certain wherewithal to be able to get up in the face of everything and do that. And she did amazing. You had the fantastic debate section that it was all about, do women matter in the film community? And it was her side, her Suki, her debate speech that she gave basically was incredibly impassioned and was fantastically done. And you could tell at the same time that she was scared at first, and then she just went full force, basically. Like, it looked like she chugged a giant Red Bull and then just went through and was a firecracker. You had the beginning, or the lady who directed, I'm going to completely butcher her name, so I'm not even going to try to do it. She directed a film called Revenge. It's a rape revenge film that's crazy bloody, very in your face, but she got up at the beginning and had some very impassioned things that she wanted to say as well. And then at the Fantastic Feud, you had the terrific, wonderful, delightful Meredith Borders, who is the current editor-in-chief for Birth Movies Death, and also I believe it's the social manager for Fantastic Fest, I think is what her title is.
Yeah, she's doing all the social media stuff. Yeah.
And she got up there before it, and she had a great speech too. That was another great middle of the week call to action, saying, if you are having an issue, or if you have something you want to talk about, come find us, reach out to us, let us know. We're here to talk. That's the best way to move forward. And so it was great to see all these people stand up and do this. And you could tell that they were in an emotionally vulnerable state, but they were still had these calls to actions. And there were so many women that I loved having conversations, not just about movies, but about this, listening to their stories, listening to the things that they have to say, saying, while I haven't done anything, what can I do to help out more in the future? And it was great from that perspective. And so while there was that cloud over it, it still felt like it was a success to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, our industry has a long way to go. It absolutely does. We are still pretty male dominated. I mean, I think our podcast is a pretty good example of this. It's been you and I, two dudes. And yes. I know you're going to talk in a bit about how we're going to make strides to change that. But, we have work to do. And the message that came out of Fantastic Fest was everyone in attendance and everyone in charge of the event is fully aware that we have work to do. And steps are being taken to do it. It was very encouraging. I loved all the conversations I had. I loved that I could walk through a room and hear people having conversations, even if I wasn't participating in them. I came away very positive from the whole experience.
Yes. I also liked it. Like I said, I mentioned the Carrie League thing, and there have been other podcasts that have gone more in depth into how long she was there and everything, I was like, there you go. If anybody's looking for a sign that there's things that are being made, the fact that she wasn't going to any of the movies and she was there for, I think, 7 out of the 8 days, somebody said, for around 12 hours a day to have the conversations with people, Tim, who, while, we don't know everything that was going on, is going around and he is talking to all the Alamos and everything. It shows that they are making steps. It'll take a while to find out what the fruition of these steps are going to be, what plans there are in the future. But the fact that you see them stepping forward and starting to want to make those changes and making those steps is it might be just the smallest bit of effort, but it's a good start compared to what you're seeing happen elsewhere in the industry, whether it's the stuff that happened with Cinefamily a while ago or what's going on with Harry Knowles, or, what happened with Harry Knowles and what's happening with Harvey Weinstein. To see these people in the middle of it taking the steps forward and saying, yes, we understand, we're looking at this in a different light and stepping forward, as opposed to everyone else who's just pushing everything away. I hope that continues to grow and to lead to many good things.
I agree. I think we all have a responsibility in this.
Yes. As you just said, we all have a responsibility in it. And if we want to make things better in general, and we want to foster good relationships, and we want to show what side of things we're coming down on, this isn't a situation where you can basically stay silent. So if you want to help out, if you want to raise these voices, if you want to champion people and say that there are changes that need to be made, not just when it comes to harassment, but with female voices in the industry that are usually quieted or buried underneath things. So even though we're a very small podcast, we are going to be opening the doors starting in November to have a series of female guests. We're already talking to a couple different female filmmakers, female critics, female hosts at a couple different Alamo locations, female writers online. And at the same time, for anyone out there who's listening who fits any of those categories, or even is a big, huge movie loving female who wants, to talk about terrible movies for an hour or so, we open those doors. We want that. We want your voices to be here. And so that we're going to do that moving forward. I think there's already about 6 to 7 people that we've reached out to, and that number is going to continue to grow as time goes on. And I mean, there's plenty of other people that I'd love to have guests, but I feel like these are the people that I want to have on first to reach out, and say, we're just watching bad movies and talking about them.
Yeah.
Anybody can do that, basically.
Literally anybody.
So we're very excited. And once we nail down, and have confirmed who we're going to have on in the show in the future, we will put that information online on our own Twitter, and then as well as, the one for for the podcast. And I think if we are lucky, to some of the people that we've reached out to will be people that listeners would very much want to hear from.
Yeah, I'm excited. I really am. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for the future of this podcast. I'm excited for the future of the industry. I'm hopeful, and I'm happy with it's rough to go through these things, but they're things that needed to come out, and things that need to be dealt with. And I'm hopeful for the future.
Do you know what I'm not hopeful for?
I think I have a pretty good idea.
The movie that we're going to jump into and talk to.
Oh boy.
So we originally had a movie that we watched about a month ago that I have been raving to everyone about. We will get to it next month, or maybe next week, depending upon who we hear back from first. With the women, might not want to be like, here, watch this, and have them be like, what the hell did you just make me watch?
Yeah,
but, we'll ease people into it. But so we're going to get to that. That one's going to be really fun. So instead, I decided, let's do something lighter. Let's do something short. Let's do something that's under 100, or under 100 minutes, under an hour and 20 minutes, for God's sakes. And let's do a sequel that I know that Scott has not seen the first movie to. So, of course, we're talking about Saturday the 14th Strikes Back. You have not seen the original, correct?
No, this follows our long tradition of me seeing sequels that I have not seen the original film to. So
there you go. Got get back in the swing of things.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the right way to do it. Of course, part of the other reason why I thought it would be fun to do this is we just had Friday the 13th last week. So here we are a week later. Might as well hit up Saturday the 14th. It's directed by a guy named Howard R. Cohen. And he did do the original film, which was just a couple years earlier. I can get you the actual dates on here in just a second. So Saturday the 14th was in 1981. And then Saturday the 14th Strikes Back was 1988. So we had 7 years in between those movies. In that time, he wrote the screenplay for Deathstalker. He also did Deathstalker 4, which I believe, and number 3. Number 3 is the one that people may have seen on Mystery Science Theater 3000. Lets you kind of know the type of person you're dealing with here. He also wrote the movie Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer. Yes, that is Rainbow Bright from the 80s.
Wait, what?
Yes.
What?
Yes. Not only did he write Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealers, he also wrote 8 episodes of the TV show, as well as 11 episodes of the Care Bears family.
Damn.
Yes. This is a guy who, one of the first movies that he wrote was called Vampire Hookers.
Yeah, of course.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Totally makes sense. Yeah. So that's the type of person you're dealing with here. Somebody who's very much all over the place, but either working in children's animation or very weird films. Saturday the 14th, the plot is described as Eddie and his family have just inherited a spooky wreck of a house. What they do not know about the house is that it's built over an evil passageway, but they are soon to discover the wacky evil it releases.
And it certainly is wacky.
I don't know how to describe this film except for it caused me pure pain the entire time. It's a movie that's an hour and 18 minutes and 12 seconds long. I didn't understand the majority of it, and that's because the film doesn't understand what's happening any moment that it's on the screen.
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of nonsense. there's no kind. I mean, there's a plot.
Mm-hmm. Technically,
yeah. I mean, like you could write down a synopsis for this movie. I mean, you did. You read one, but
yes,
you could write down a detailed synopsis.
Yeah, no, I couldn't do that because I couldn't even really. I even made a comment to you while watching it that I was having trouble taking notes because I was just trying to figure out what was happening or why it was happening.
Yeah, this is a movie that's trying real hard to be funny and is very rarely actually funny.
I at like the minute 6 or 7 mark, I wrote the line, it's essentially if the Zuckers dropped acid with Mel Brooks and somehow that sucked away all their sense of humor.
Okay. I like that. I approve.
Yeah. Because it hits it. It does try to have that mile a minute joke. It tries to make topical, I guess, at least for the time, jokes. But no one's in on the jokes. And the way the movie starts, you have a kid who's walking on a beach in a white shirt, like he's the before picture when the after picture is Fabio somehow. But he's walking along the beach in his white shirt and he's narrating, like you hear the VO mentioning, what a crazy summer he had recently. And he doesn't know if it was quite real. And then he looks directly to the camera and starts talking. So it cuts from the VO to him looking at the screen and talking.
Yeah, and that's like immediately setting up for a what are we doing?
Why is this happening?
Why are we doing this?
And then he says when he looks at the camera, little did I know that I, Eddie, whatever his name was, would have to save the world. And I'm like, no, kid, no. And then it goes back into the VO while he's walking down the street and he's talking about stuff that you're not seeing because they're focusing on him walking down the street and talking about the neighborhood. And then you see a mailman who ends up putting a package on the ground that's a ticking time bomb and it ends up exploding off screen. You never see, you think you see the guy like one other time walking around town and that's it.
Yeah. And this is clearly like a last minute add in to the movie because it as the explosion goes off, it cuts to our main character who does not react at all. Just looks back and then keeps on walking. And this is like the concept of the movie is that these people move into this weird house and strange stuff starts happening, but the strange stuff is happening before any of that. And it just seems like the movie's always going for a joke that doesn't make sense, even when that has nothing to do with the strange haunted house crack thing.
Yeah. Well, he mentions right away that they've inherited a house because his uncle recently unexpectedly passed. And when he mentions that, they have a cutaway to his uncle dying via electric chair. Something that no one ends up referring to at any other point in the movie whatsoever. You don't know why he was in jail, what put him on death row, why his house was like not. I don't know if they condemn them or if it gets put up on like an auction block or something like that. But somehow he was able to be in jail for a long enough period of time that he was executed, but then his house went to a family member.
Yeah. Do you get to have an estate when you're executed? Is that how that works?
I don't think so. But this family doesn't make sense because we learn 2 minutes later that he mentions that his sister is 7 months older than him.
Yeah, Adrian, how fast do babies take to grow?
Usually 9 months, which means at the very least this kid was 2 months premature. I know that happens, but
Adrian, babies don't grow that fast. Like, I don't know if you can get pregnant for at least a few weeks after having a kid.
That much I don't know. I think I fell asleep at that part in Health because I didn't know that it would come into play when watching a movie that's under an hour and 20 minutes long.
And that's the thing about this movie is, like, that could have just been intended to be a joke, but I don't know, because the movie's so strange, and it's like, sometimes they're trying real hard for a joke, but sometimes they just let weird things happen. Like the fact that everyone in this movie just, like, anything in their hands, they just, like, throw on the floor indiscriminately, and they don't care about it.
Well, we're talking about when the scene occurs when he mentions that his sister's 7 months older than him. They're eating dinner, which consists of, like, candy and cake and just really sugary items.
Yeah. And this is supposed to be normal. Like, there's this idea that they're the normal American family, and then weird things starts happening. But yeah, they're clearly not.
No. And the weird stuff seems like it's unleashed by this fog that's permanently growing in the house that's emanating from a crack in the basement. Because as the kid mentions, there's certain places in the world where there's just cracks in the earth. And one of them was under the house. I don't know if he means like a fault line, but the fog that seeps in seems like it alters people's judgment.
Everything.
But there's no setup for how long these people have been in this house. We don't know if they've been in there for like 2 weeks or 5 years or what's causing this. Well, I mean, we kind of find out what's going on a little bit with the crack, but we don't know how long this is potentially going on that the son's just now noticing, because the son is immune to the effects of the fog that's taking place. But the fog manifests in weird ways. Like there's a creature that's under his aunt's and her boyfriend's bed, that it's the only time you see the creature, but the creature's not attached to anything else, and you don't know if he was there before the fog or not.
You don't know. There's a chair that eats things.
Mm-hmm. There's a chair that eats a couple things with no payoff. There is a vampire that suddenly shows up in the kid's room, which I have an issue with, because who invited the vampire in?
Well, we don't know what the world and the rules of Saturday the 14th are. Maybe in this world, vampires don't have to be invited in.
We have no idea. But vampires are allowed to randomly break into song.
Yeah. Because
16 minutes into a movie.
It's one that we turn into musical and then we leave it. But it's a song about how rough being a vampire is, because this person really just wants to eat food.
Yes, they want to eat food, but vampires don't have appetites. Zombies don't eat anything, which they mentioned a whole bunch of different times. And technically, depending upon the zombies that we're speaking of, they do devour brains. They may devour flesh.
And there's a scene later in the movie where they're cooking brains, which I feel like are for zombies. So you know what? I don't think this movie is consistent to its own rules.
Well, you've got it. One of the first moments when the kid realizes that something's weird going on is that he sees each member of his family is getting up in the middle of the night and grabbing spoons from a tray that, first of all, is on the second floor of the building, and then taking the spoons, walking down to the kitchen, standing around the table while the dad makes different sculptures out of pudding.
Yeah, Adrian, so we hear the sound effect of him molding the pudding before he gets down there.
Yep.
Did that sound like something to you?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
I thought we were about to take a turn in this movie, because it sounds like a dude that's jerking off. This is exactly what it sounds like.
Well, he is technically beating the pudding.
But he's doing a statue, a sculpture of the Statue of Liberty.
Yes. And
everyone's holding spoons and dancing around it. And this is never explained.
No. I mean, they have three. They try to follow the rule of three. And the first time they have the Statue of Liberty. The second time it's a sculpture of the thinker. And the third one I'm blanking on, but
it's the kid, right? It's Eddie himself. It's a sculpture.
That's right, because they're going to murder him at that point.
Yeah, because at that point they're just going to kill him. Still don't know why.
They mention after they do the Statue of Liberty that the next day in the newspaper, the dad's reading that the Statue of Liberty was spinning around in the harbor.
And apparently everyone's just super chill about that.
Yeah.
Because they bring it up once and then just move on with their lives.
And then the sculpture of the thinker was stolen. Like it disappeared.
Yeah, that never pays off in any kind of meaningful way.
No, not at all. But I couldn't, they've got Grandpa's played by Ray Walston, who is the highest billed person in the movie, but he's only on screen for about 10 minutes. Well, no, I thought about it at first and I felt slightly bad until I remembered that Ray Walston had a long period of his career where he was not in really good things. He was one of those actors who basically came up at the wrong time. He was a really good actor, but he would just continually get put in cruddy things because people weren't sure, what to do with him because he was an actor out of time, essentially. So he languished in a whole bunch of really crappy TV shows, really crappy movies because he was a name that they could put on things,
Yeah, that's fair.
But he's a good actor, and you can tell that that the moments that he has in this that you're watching, and you're like, you're so much better than this. But then you just remember, and you're like, oh yeah, you were in a whole bunch of crappy things. You were in the made-for-TV sequel to The Jerk, so can't really feel too bad for you.
Yeah. I mean, he's fine. It's so hard to talk about this movie because it's just nonsense. It's just complete, utter nonsense. And sometimes the nonsense is appealing to me, but most of the time you're just like, what? What?
Like it should feel like it's a series of vignettes, but they're broken down into such small pieces that you can't really get a handle on what's leading into the next bit. Or shtick. And instead of having things be self-contained, they have lots of random gags that are repeated over and over and over, but then they don't have any payoff. And they feel like just having gags is what will add up to something in the film.
Yeah.
And then when they realize they don't have any payoff from them, they try to attach a story on top of everything, which doesn't work.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like we said at the beginning, it's very easy to see this movie as a parody of Friday the 13th. When you sent me the name of the movie, I was like, oh, that's a fun idea for a parody of Friday the 13th. Maybe you could construct a movie that's about the day after Friday the 13th and the day after all this terrible shit happens. But
technically, a movie like that does exist, and it's called the Middle Trilogy of Friday the 13th. I know we're past Friday the 13th, but for anybody who doesn't know the simple story behind it, the first movie takes place on Friday the 13th. Second movie then takes place 5 years later on Friday the 13th. The third movie and the fourth movie are that Saturday and Sunday. So technically, Friday the 13th Part 3 is Saturday the 14th.
Yeah, but
so there is a movie out there that has that. But you're a sequel to Saturday the 14th. And I haven't seen that movie either. But after reading about it, it's also not a spoof of Friday the 13th. It's more like this film. And that's what's really, really strange is the fact that you have this guy who directed both parts 1 and 2, and the films sound very much the same. Like here, just to give you an example, the plot of Saturday the 14th is a family moves into a house inhabited by scary creatures and a number of close calls ensue.
Wait, that's the same movie.
Exactly. And that's what it is. You have the monsters and the creatures, and you have lots of creatures that are in the house, and you have a regular family that's in it. I think the basic story is a little bit different, and I would hopefully think would be better put together compared to the second one, because the story that we end up getting is that Saturday the 14th derives its name from the fact that Eddie was born on Saturday the 14th.
Yeah. And that's it.
The cracks that are in the ground are signaling are readying for the release of all the evil in the world that's going to come and take over the earth for the next 1,000,000 years. That number is very odd because people start throwing out numbers willy-nilly for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
Somebody mentions that they're 8,000 years old. Somebody mentions, oh, this thing hasn't happened since the 13th century. Somebody ends up saying one of the quote-unquote bad guys, because he doesn't really do anything bad or evil. He just tries to convince the kid to be evil. Mentions, we've been battling for the past 1,000 years, and now I win. They also tell Eddie that he's been chosen to be the new Prince of Darkness. And so once this evil is unleashed, that he will be the new generation's Dark Lord, basically. And they make the comments that he will have this power for 10,000 years. If you do the math, they mentioned that the evil's going to take over the earth for 1,000,000 years, but he only gets the power for 10,000 years. Will also be given. He's also going to be given immortality.
Yeah. So what happens after the 10,000 years?
He's immortal, but he doesn't have any powers.
He just retires. He just retires and he goes and plays mini golf forever.
That was weird. That's about the 35-40 minute mark of the film. A whole bunch of weird things have been happening to him. He's got a vampire lady who's basically living in his room, and you just see him. He's just wandering outside, and he goes, I had a lot of questions that needed to be answered, and the only person that could answer them was my teacher. But it was the summer, so I didn't know where she was. And then all of a sudden she pops up right next to him working at the mini golf place, and ends up then yelling at him saying that he needs to play mini golf. And the kid just goes, oh no, they got you too. Apropos of nothing, which causes her to chase after him. And all the monsters that have shown up in the basement of the house are also at the mini golf place, while a song about listening to his teacher and letting the creatures inside him take over starts playing.
Yeah, if I thought this was a more clever movie, I would say that's a pretty veiled exploration of something weird, but no,
it's not. This is also a kid who literally 15 minutes earlier said the only person that I could confide in for any answers was my grandpa.
Who turns out to not actually be his grandpa.
In my favorite piece of dialogue in the entire movie, when he says, wait, so you're not my grandpa? To which Ray Walston says, I chose to be.
Well, it's funny because his parents are it's like, go tell your father he needs to do whatever. And the guy's like, I thought he was your father. And she's like,
no, my father lives in a retirement home.
My father lives in Orlando. Like, what is happening? This is after the plumber comes over.
Yes. Oh man, we'll get to the plumber in a second. But the moment where the parents make that comment about grandpa is at an hour and 7 minutes into an hour and 18-minute film. The plumber who has some telling lines that there were probably many people who wrote on this movie, and most of them were high, and most of them only wrote one joke. Plumber.
So he has the plumber come over because there's fog leaking out of the vents constantly. And the plumber solution is close the vents. So he has the kid run upstairs and close all the vents upstairs. And he shows him how to close it by closing the vent in the living room.
And then opens it
And then
back
he
up.
opens it again. And he's like taking a screwdriver to it. I don't know what he's doing, but the point is he turns into a chicken.
No, the point is before this, when the kid goes, wait, that's really all you have to do? And the plumber says, I've been a plumber since you were a boy. The kid's still like 13 at this time, so he technically is a boy.
Yesterday. This is my first day.
He then the kid runs down to the other room to close the vent while the plumber starts singing a song about how a plumber's life is really hard.
Yeah.
And that he's been a plumber since he was just a lad.
What? Well, he's just taking a screwdriver to this vent. It's not doing anything.
No, because he just showed how to close it, and then he turns into a chicken, which leads to the most disturbing part of the entire movie. He turns into a chicken. The film immediately cuts to the parents cooking the plumber that was a chicken, and the mom then turns to the kid and says, "It's okay. I stuffed it with fudge and gumdrops."
They ate him. They ate the plumber. It's just like, it's nonsense. But like,
it's nonsense because it's also like the first actual piece of food any of these people have had in the entire movie.
Well, and that's why like the candy beat is so weird, because like there's this beat throughout the movie that Eddie is like tempted by these dark powers because he can finally get his parents off his back. But his parents are like amazing and like feed him candy for breakfast and all this other stuff. And it's like, what are you talking about?
Well, when Scott mentioned that there's a part where they're cooking brains later, and that's when Eddie realizes that he has powers to make things change, to get what he wants. And one of the things that he does is he stares at the brains so that they get turned into cheeseburgers because that's what he wants to eat. He's got the parents at home that are like, oh, no, we're only having sweets. The family who spurns the grandpa when one morning grandpa's like, I could really go for some eggs and some bacon and nice buttery toast. And everybody in the family laughs at him. And so the kid's respite when he finds out, oh, I have the power to control ultimate evil. Cheeseburgers for everyone.
Yep.
It's... The movie's just like the cheapest, like crappiest thing that you can think of. But there's money behind it. It's not a lot of money, but it's certainly not like it's not the cheapest movie ever made.
No, we've looked at much more cheaply made films than this. I mean, they definitely put money into it, but I don't.
That's a strange thing. Like they put money into this film, and like, had there not been money in the movie, I think there's a chance that you might see the cheesy effects and everything as being more, I don't know if you'd say earnest, but there'd be more goodwill towards it because of the fact that you're like, these people are trying to do the best they can. This guy already fucked people over because he made part one and now got even more money. And the person who's responsible for giving him the money is none other than Julie Corman, who, of course, is, the wife of Roger Corman. But Roger Corman did not produce this film. Julie went out of her way to produce not only the first one, but then the second one. It's sad.
It is.
This movie, it's like you're watching it and you're hoping that something comes out of this film, that something's developing. But then the storyline that they have with Eddie just isn't interesting because Eddie is one of the most annoying kids of all time.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's either complaining,
yes,
or like he whines basically throughout the entire movie, and it feels hilarious to be talking about character arcs in a movie as fucking awful as this, but he doesn't have one. He's just static. He's just, this is a guy, and he does this thing, and at the end, he decides not to do a thing, but it's like, those choices never feel real. Yeah.
Well, the worst thing about him, and if everybody who's listening, and Scott, you too, because you can back me up on if I'm right or wrong here, is close your eyes for a moment. Picture the sound of somebody who's going through puberty, the height of puberty, where every other word they're saying, their voice is cracking. And now imagine that person is reading the most vile and angry and whiny, but PG related tweets. That's Eddie for the majority of the film.
I like it.
Yeah. If you had a PG version of the complaints of Gamer Gators going through the like nasally prepubescent 13, 14-year-old, that's Eddie for the entire film.
Yeah. And like,
it's terrible.
It's so like, I'm thinking back and like the random parts of this movie jump out at me. Like when he goes down in the basement and finds his kiddie pool from when he was a kid filled with 6 fish, and then takes one of the fish up to the sink. And I guess they eat that too. I don't even know.
If we're going to mention that, we have to mention the fact that he walks downstairs, sees the kiddie pool, and then there's a guy with a fez on his head who's just standing there, and he just automatically goes, "You're the one who's causing all this. You need to stop it. Leave my family alone."
I guess we should also say that the guy with the fez has like very clearly been brown-faced. Like he's got a lot of thick colored makeup on to make him look more Middle Eastern.
It's very disturbing. That's not even the worst thing in the film. What I felt was the most disturbing section of the film was when they continually focus on the TV at different parts for, little jokes that are in there, either commercials that they have or different television programming. And the one that they pay attention to the most deals with a sport that's simply called horse shooting. And the guy who is the national champion at horse shooting ends up hiding in the family's house for the majority of the film. So just as you're getting really annoyed with the jokes that aren't funny at all, you're reminded that, hey, here I am, an old British dude with a giant shotgun looking for horses to shoot in the face.
Yeah, and like, I'm glad you didn't talk about the TV thing that I was saving for my Ray of Sunshine.
We'll get to. I hope it's the same thing because my thing's on the radio, so we'll.
Oh yeah. It is the same thing. Yes, I think we have chosen the same Ray of Sunshine. That's wonderful.
Because there's nothing else redeeming in this movie.
And I guess there are times when I think the movie is trying to be parody. Like they have the Jason mask on his friend a couple times.
Who wants to play hockey?
Yeah, who just wants to play hockey. Then there's the entire scene with his sister in the bathtub, which seems like it's pulling hard on Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, it is.
But
it is.
But just really boringly.
Yeah, because they have this hand that's supposed to look like a monster that has long like fingernails on it, so it doesn't look exactly like the gloves. But they're playing a knockoff version of the Jaws theme at the same time, but she ends up getting pulled into the tub just like in A Nightmare on Elm Street, but instead of it being a dream, you hear her body pinball through a whole bunch of pipes throughout the house.
Yeah, that's so funny, right?
But that's after, though, like the whole reason that she's taking the bath is because randomly in the middle of the film, she becomes a giant in her room. And because of how big she is,
I forgot about that. This fucking movie.
Because they don't explain it.
This
just all
fucking
of a sudden,
movie.
she's a giant in the room. And she wakes up the next morning and she's got bruises all over her face because that's where it was pressed up against the wall. And also in this bathroom scene, you have one of the handful of scenes that has Michael Berryman, who of course, has been in several different films. Most notably, most people would know him from the original The Hills Have Eyes. And he's in it as the mummy, but he's a mummy whose face is exposed the whole time.
Yeah. Well, you got to get that Michael Berryman money, right?
Like you
got to show
hire
his
face. Just have him look like Michael Berryman. That's it. That's it. Don't be like, oh, we got Michael Berryman. Oh, that's great. What part he's playing? The mummy. Oh, the person who should be completely wrapped up, or if any of them is exposed, it should be either a rotting face or a skull.
Yeah.
That's the part that we're gonna have him play.
Yeah. Look, they didn't make a lot of smart decisions here. But so I guess I think we're rounding towards the end of this movie now. I don't really know.
Well, because the movie doesn't know, and so I guess that we'll end discussing the movie and then get to the final parts in just a moment, because that's exactly what the film does. They keep on saying that there's a countdown to midnight, and you find out that Grandpa isn't really Grandpa, and that he knew that Eddie was going to be special. So he basically decided at his birth that he was going to insert him into his life as his grandpa. He is really a wizard who is thousands upon thousands of years old and has a magic potion that he and his friend Leonard, that he's been talking about for the entire movie, who everybody mentions is dead, and they went to his funeral, but he's really alive because he's like an 8,000-year-old sorcerer, has a potion that can be used to send all the demons back to, and evil creatures and everything back to where they originally came from. And of course, because the kid's an idiot, he has plenty of times where he's able to use the bell but doesn't actually use it.
He drops it like 5 times.
5 different times. It should be in other people's hands. It's given back to him. It's broken again, and there ends up being like it strikes midnight, and he's holding it right before midnight strikes, and is like getting ready to use it, and then it strikes midnight, and they're like, oh, now you can't use it, and a giant shrouded red face shows up in the sky wanting to do battle with him,
which they do. They like point their fingers at each other and go, pew pew. And
then they end up on a train that's going to be running into another train that the other person's on. But like, I couldn't tell if that guy was supposed to be like the previous incarnation of the Prince of Darkness, or
I have no idea.
God.
I don't know who the princess is supposed to be either. So I don't know.
But they end up having a battle that the only reason it ends is because Ray Walston reminds him that he has, that the power is in the coin that he had, which causes the kid to stupidly go, no, the power was in me all along. At which point I wanted to throw myself through the computer.
Yeah, because we knew that because he turned the brains to hamburgers. Like, what? I don't understand why there was conflict.
But then the kid pulls the most asinine thing in the entire world, in which he's like, yes, that's right. I'm the one who controls it. I have all the power. I'm going to choose to do nothing. Then instantly after he chooses to do nothing, he says, and that's when things got back to normal. But the first shot that we see after he says things get back to normal is that his family's eating actual food.
Yeah. So
like they're wishing him well. They say that you need to get 8 hours of sleep a night for a good night's rest. The reason that's important is because there's a moment earlier in the film, which if I can grab the clip, we will put right in after this because it's really awkward, where the dad's talking about the most important thing is socks. And that's all.
So I guess what they're saying is then even at the beginning of the movie, they were already acting weird.
Yeah, but it goes into we don't have the setup. How long have they been here? How long has the smoke been coming up? And because the writing of the movie is so crappy, in his VO, when he mentions, that everything got back to normal, and he goes, except for Grandpa. I never saw him again, so I don't know what happened there.
So did he just forget everything? Like,
I don't.
I think we're thinking too hard about this movie, sadly.
And then he's on the beach where he was at the very beginning of the movie, and he even says, I don't know if what happened last week was even real, or was it a dream? And then, like Scott mentions, the princess from the beginning of the film is there on the beach with him.
So it very clearly happened then. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Why is she still there, though? I don't get it.
Because he liked her? Because
but isn't
she like
the princess of evil? Like,
no, she was the princess of something. Like, she was a princess of some place.
But like the whole thing was like he was going to go to the dark side because he liked her, and they got her. Like, they got him with this girl. I don't.
Well, she ends up giving him
get it.
The bell one of the 10 times that he drops it, and he goes, "Why did you give me this bell?" And she goes, "Because you're the nicest boy I've ever met in centuries."
I don't understand.
Then they walk off on the beach.
So is she still immortal? Is he still immortal? What? I don't understand.
And the movie ends on a terrible, terrible song, which I guess is fitting with the rest of the film.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah.
I didn't even stay to listen to it. You had me go back, and I'm glad you did.
Because you needed to hear it, because it's so bad. Like, even by the terms of the normal bad songs that we've had, like Ruby Dawn or the end of Snake Eater, this one is a whole new level of crappy, because I thought it was a joke song at first when they had the guy singing, and then they bring in a female voice that you're like, oh no, this is a real song that somebody wrote. It's just as terrible as everything that came before it, which made me feel very sad inside.
Yeah, hopefully we won't get every time we use one of these funny songs, we get content flagged on YouTube. So hopefully people don't care about this song and we will not get content flagged.
Yes.
I hope, because I want people to hear it.
We shall see. Okay, so I guess we can vote and then mention Ray of Sunshine, since we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious.
Do you have any closing thoughts on this movie particularly?
I mean,
no?
Just like this isn't like I did not get angry watching this movie. I was just confused the entire time. And
I got it.
Well, okay. But I don't know. I don't, there's no real redeeming value to it. It's not funny. Like there are times when it made me chuckle, but never when it wanted to. Like the times where it's trying to be funny, it's not funny. Except for one.
All right. So Scott, what's the best way to set up how you felt about, or what your Ray of Sunshine is? Because I feel like I will let you give the lead into this.
So there's a lot of stuff going on in the background of this movie, and if you are basically giving up on the movie, you are searching for something to enjoy, and that is the background stuff. And one of the things in the background is a radio news broadcast about a little girl.
No, did you catch what? I guess technically this was a little bit prophetic, but did you hear what the news channel was all about?
No, I did not.
They mentioned that they're the first news channel that's just 24 hours news coverage on the radio.
Wow. Yeah, that's this movie predicting the future.
But continue.
Yes, in this news bulletin that's going on, I think we get at least 3 beats throughout the film. There is a girl trapped in a cardboard box, and they are having
How big is a cardboard box, Scott?
I don't know. How big is it?
Oh, they mentioned it, that it's 4 feet deep.
It's 4 feet deep. So this girl trapped in a cardboard box. There's all this thing about how they're sending food down to her. They eventually get her out of the box, but then she gets trapped.
After how long?
Days, right?
96 hours.
Oh, yeah, 96 hours. You're right.
That's the first time. The first time they make sure to mention that she's been trapped in the box for 96 hours before
4 foot deep box. Yeah.
4 foot deep cardboard box. that has police, fire trucks, ambulances all around it.
So they get her out of the box, and then she gets stuck in the box again.
She falls back into the box.
This is all going on in the background. None of the characters ever comment on this at all.
No.
It's just like the only time that the humor worked on me, that something was trying to be funny and I thought was actually hilarious.
It keeps, I think it bleeds over into the TV. Like they give an update on the TV at one point too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
We're going to try to see if we can get all the little clips and edit it together directly after this.
That's so good.
Oh my God.
So
I don't.
I am tempted to say not guilty just for the cardboard box scenes.
No. It doesn't matter. We're talking about roughly 35 to 45 seconds out of a movie that's an hour and 18 minutes and 20 seconds long.
Yeah. We could just slice together the cardboard box supercut and just say, just watch this.
Or just listen to it.
Or just listen to it. Yeah.
Oh man, there's nothing really redeeming about this movie besides that. And you can't really tell somebody, hey, watch this because of this. It becomes a badge of honor that you can enjoy because of the shitty experience that you had watching the film.
And I was bummed because I read the name of the movie and I was ready for a bad, but I don't know, interesting take on Friday the 13th and a spoof on it. And it's just not what we get. It's like the it being Saturday the 13th is completely inconsequential to the plot outside of it being the main character's birthday. It could have been Sunday the 12th and it wouldn't have mattered at all.
Yep. It's just, I'm glad that there weren't 3 of these movies. That's, I don't know why that's the positive thing that I can say, but, there wasn't a 3rd film of this, but guess what? I'm voting guilty.
Yeah. I mean, I was kidding. No one should have to watch this movie, and I don't want to ever talk about it ever again. So there's a way we can do that, and it's by saying right here, right now, this movie is guilty and needs to be banished. Yep.
You have been phantom zoned. Saturday the 14th strikes back.
Sweet Star Wars reference movie.
We have strucken you back. Oh. Yeah, good times. Because this movie's gone now.
Only because of that.
We may do another horror movie next week. We'll see. It's still up in the air. Heartbeeps isn't considered a horror, so we have to push it back. Maybe that'll be one of the first ones that we do in November that we have our guest on for. You know, not too bad of a start for them. So. The other movie that we mentioned that we were originally going to do before we wanted to do a horror movie in here is called Blood Ring. You can either spend $2 for a VHS tape online, $50 for a VHS tape online, or you can watch that on YouTube. I suggest watching it even before we end up recording on it because it's a joy. For anybody who's ever been to Video Vortex, that's the type of movie Blood Ring is. And so I'll be really happy once we get to it. Scott and I are back. We're back into our regular rotation. So while we've had a month off, we are back in, I want to say stronger than ever, but then we watched this movie. So
yeah, I was really excited to get back into the Phantom Zone. And then I remembered that it was forcing me to watch bad movies.
Yeah. But you remember what we do.
I'm happy to take one for the team. Don't bother seeing this movie.
No. Well, until next time, everyone, be good out there.
And the clouds go away, and the tears clear your eyes, and you can see the day. I believe in happy endings, no matter where the story's taking me. When the storm is shaking me, I somehow keep pretending that I hear a friend sing, a song that will awaken me. I go on believing my dreams, no matter how far away it seems. When I'm all alone and the world closes in,